So you want to create your future, discover a path worth traveling down, find a career to get excited about. For decades, Career Tech has been training talented, skilled individuals, empowering them to step into a career that fuels not only their life, but the Oklahoma workforce. These individuals are the heartbeat of this state's economy. Individuals just like you. Create your future today at Oklahoma Career Tech.
It's time for the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, presented by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst Attorneys at Law. We put it out there, the teams, the stats, the opinions, the picks, and most importantly, where to stop for dinner on the way to the game. Let's get to it. Here's your host, Andy Campbell.
Hello and welcome, football fans, to the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst Law Firm. We are going to discuss the best games in the state of Oklahoma this week, which is week 7 of the Oklahoma high school football season. It's finally getting some cold weather out. This cold front coming through as we're taping this show, so we're getting into some good football weather for the remainder of the season. I believe all the games that we are picking tonight will be played on Thursday this week, as most schools have fall break. So again, be on the lookout at Skordle.tv on Thursday evening for these games. Mark Rogers, Tom Nelson joining us, and our first guest picker tonight is Chris Evans. Chris is the host of the High School Huddle, which can be seen live each week on the Second Banana Media YouTube page. Chris, thanks for joining us tonight. Tell us about your show and how people can watch it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. It's just a weekly show we have every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, and we go through some news on and off the field and take a look at our top 5 and our top 10 games of the week and try to get them right most of the time. But it's a fun show, interactive. People can chat with us live about, we can't be at every game and hear about every player. So we get to hear from people around the state to tell us about their team and their player and their thoughts on whatever may be happening in the world of high school sports. So appreciate that. 6 o'clock Wednesday nights on the High School Huddle on our Second Banana Media YouTube page.
Well, it's a great show, Chris. We're thankful to have you on. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Our second guest picker is a return guest to the show. We've had him on last year, Mr. Hunter Shepard. Hunter is from Porum, Oklahoma, but well known being an Oklahoma high school sports guru. Hunter, thanks for coming on. Great to have you on again.
Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure to be on.
So where have you been today?
Well, I just actually got done taking photos of a junior high football game tonight.
No softball?
Class 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A state tournament doesn't start until Thursday. I did the 2A, A, and B championships on Saturday.
Hunter, all over the state, covering all the sports in Oklahoma. We're going to discuss 8 network Skordle games tonight, 2 games of the week, and then 4 out-of-network Skordle games. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to kick off the show with a big 4A matchup as Ardmore travels to Blanchard to take on Coach Craig's Lions. Blanchard moved to 6-0 on the season with a big win over Tecumseh a week ago. Ardmore 4-2 on the year. Need some wins down the stretch to make sure that they get into the playoffs. Mark, start us off.
This has been a good bounce-back year for Ardmore, who was 1-9 last season, and they have a bunch of young players on this team. So they're building, now that they've dropped down to 4A, I think, to something bigger in the next couple of seasons. But I think that this game will probably be just a little too much for them. Blanchard in a tough district with Tuttle and Bethany. They have the win over Bethany. I think if I have to project out in the future, to me, there are 3 teams in Class 4A that stand out above everybody else. It's Elgin, Wagner, and Tuttle. I look forward to some really good playoffs. But I think Ardmore's got a good chance to make it into the playoffs in this district this year and kind of build something for the future. But I'm going with the Lions over the Tigers.
Tom.
Well, Ardmore has developed a pattern. They've won 2, lost 2, and won 2. And the fact that they're playing one of the best teams in the state probably ensures that this trend's going to continue. Blanchard just continues to impress. I'm going to throw a name out there. Cole Watkins, good wide receiver, but he's put up some really gaudy numbers from his linebacker spot. He averages 10 tackles a game, has the team high 6 sacks. And it looks like this is the first time these 2 teams have ever played each other. So I'm going to take Blanchard to win the first game in this series.
Chris Evans.
Yeah, Josh Newby's doing a great job there in Ardmore, dropping down to 4A. I think they had won 4 games in the previous 2 years. Have already accomplished that 4 wins here this season. I got to see Blanchard with my own eyes, and good news for Blanchard, they got their projected quarterback at the beginning of the year, Hudson Perryman. He was out with their shoulder injury, came back, and boy, a lot of confidence from Coach Craig. Of course, they won 18 straight ball games in a row. But Noah Smith, I saw him play against Guthrie. And he's the transfer from Westmore. I think he got some playing time as a freshman at Westmore, came in, did a great job. So now Blanchard has 2 high-quality quarterbacks. How Coach Craig adjusted that, I'm not sure, but Hudson Perryman is a welcome sight back to Blanchard. And I was looking at it today, a little extended forecast, because if everything goes what we might think in 4A, you have Wagner and Elgin maybe in the semifinal, but you might have Wagner and the loser, the second place total Blanchard for a second round game for Wagner. So 4A has been a fun class this year, but you didn't get the 3 powerhouses on one side of the bracket. It will be interesting if it all holds true. But yeah, I will take Blanchard in this one, staying undefeated, extend their win streak to 19 games.
Hunter.
Well, as you guys said, those 3 teams that stand out in 4A, Tuttle, Elgin, and Wagner, which is how I have it. And first matchup all time for Ardmore and Blanchard. And I think Blanchard's going to roll on to 7-0. They are playing really good football right now.
All right. Well, you can watch that matchup for free, Skordle.tv or BlanchardLions.tv. From 4A to 2A with a big matchup in Perry on Thursday. The Maroons beat up on Mount St. Mary's last week, final score 41-7. OCS lost by that same score to a really good Millwood team last week as well. There are 5 teams fighting for 4 spots in 4A1. 2A1. So the winner of this matchup will have a leg up on that playoff spot. Tom Nelson started us off, OCS at Perry.
Yeah, this is the big playoff implication ball game right here, because Perry, they finish up at Chisholm and at Millwood. OCS finishes with Jones and Mount St. Mary. So last week, Millwood basically shut out OCS, allowed a meaningless touchdown, about 3 minutes to play in that ball game. Perry hammered Mount St. Mary, as you said, 41-7. Andrew Kukuk had 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on a bum ankle. So pretty impressive. Perry's the hot team after last week, but OCS looking their wounds a bit after losing to Millwood. Well, I've been going back and forth on this one, but I think I'm leaning toward OCS. So I'm going to take OCS.
Mark.
Well, first I have to address the elephant in the room. Jake Dieselhorst is not here tonight. And there are rumors that it is because the Philadelphia mob has kidnapped him and held him for ransom, because some of the lines have been off the last couple of weeks. So tonight there will be no lines on games.
He's
There's no formula.
Yeah, we need a rescue of Jake and Philly.
No Dieselhorst formula tonight. Hopefully he's off in some exotic island with Ray Maples. Okay, so we got to pick Perry and OCS.
Yep, Perry OCS.
Adam and I saw Perry last week at Mount St. Mary, and the Maroons were really good. But I think OCS. This is going to be a close game, but I think OCS takes the Maroons of the South.
Mark taking the road team. Let's go to Chris.
Yeah, OCS led by Tanner Roof. You grew up here in Guthrie before moving off to Minko, so I got to see Reagan and I were teammates together on the basketball bench when Guthrie was rolling in the mid-'90s. So, but OCS, they have some great wins at the late fourth quarter wins over Christian Heritage and Chisholm. Perry does have that huge victory over or Blackwell has that, or Perry had a huge win over Blackwell earlier this year. That might really help them at home this year. But I don't think OCS won this game huge last year. I think it's a little bit closer than last year, but I am going with the visiting team of OCS.
Hunter Shepard.
Well, as you guys said, it was a close meeting last year. Perry's on a hot streak right now. OCS coming off that loss against Millwood. However, I'm going to take Perry in this one. I think they can make this district interesting. This has been proven to be one of the tougher districts in 2A1, and I think it's going to be a really close game.
Hunter taking the Maroons for the win on Thursday. Skordle.tv, PerryMaroons.tv for that matchup. Let's go to District A2. Minko fell for 4-2 on the year after a 10-0 loss to a good Wynnewood team last week. The Bulldogs will look to bounce back on the road at Walters. The Blue Devils have a record of 4-1 and currently sit fourth in A2. Can Coach Wardwell's team get back on track with a road win at Walters? Mark Rogers.
I think it's going to be tough. That was a good win for Wynnewood. Coach Osteen, who left Ada to go to Wynnewood, that was a good victory for them last week. I was wrong on that game. I like Walters in this. A good team in that division of Class A. And so I think this one will be a close game, but I like Walters.
Tom.
Now, Walters has been solid this year, and they were expecting that with 15 seniors back who had won 18 of 23 games over the past couple of seasons. In their 5 wins, the margin of victory is about 22 points a game. That loss was to Christian Heritage 3 weeks ago. Minko was shut out for the first time since 2020 when they lost to Wynnewood last week. This is a tough one to pick, but I'm going to go with the home team also. I'm going to take Walters in this one.
Chris.
Tom took every single note I had, and Walters, the Blue Devils. It was going to happen eventually, but Walters, they having a hard time getting past that second round here last couple of years, but that senior class is really, really good, and I will take the Blue Devils at home.
Hunter.
All right, so as we said, Minko coming off that tough loss to Wynnewood, Walters 15 seniors back, and I like what Walters has been doing this year. I'm going to pick the Blue Devils to keep on rolling.
Skordle.tv, MinkoBulldogs.tv for that matchup between Minko and Walters. Pick'em game number 4, 2, 5, and 1 teams facing off in Texoma on Thursday in a matchup with big-time playoff implications. The Thomas Terriers were undefeated until a 1-point loss at Apache last week. Texoma Goodwell defeated Cordell by a score of 81-0 a week ago. Tom Nelson, Thomas at Texoma Goodwell.
This is the one game we're picking that is a further drive than the Hooker game and Fairview game we're going to on Thursday night. A2-1 is a super competitive district with Mangum, Texoma, Thomas, Apache, Southwest Covenant, Moreland, all in the mix for those 4 playoff spots. Thomas has been rolling 3 shutouts, and nobody had scored more than a touchdown on them in a 5-0 start. Then last week they go to Apache, losing a shootout, giving up 34 points. Texoma is a loss to undefeated Texas powerhouse Groover from being 6-0. And Texoma pitched a shutout last week. They beat Cordell, as you said, 81-0. I'm looking for anything to help me with this pick. It's a tough one. I'm going to go with the recent history. Last year, Thomas shut out Texoma 21-0. I think the memory will give the Terriers just enough swagger on that bus ride out to the Panhandle, and they're going to come home with the win. So give me the Terriers.
Mark.
Scares me to go against Tom, but I like Texoma in this game. I think they face the tougher schedule. I picked against them a couple of weeks ago and lost. So I'm going to go with the Red Devils here over the Terriers, which is easily in the Thunderdome a mismatch. Devils beat the Terriers 100 times out of 100.
No doubt. Chris Evans.
I looked it up today, and it's exact mileage when you go from Thomas to Texoma, whether you go through Oklahoma or through Texas, the hours and the miles are exactly the same. So I'd be curious which route Thomas takes, through Woodward or through Texas, is the one of the big questions I have going into this ball game. Thomas Fay Custer, I like them to win this ball game. With the shutout last year, I think Thomas goes on the road to get the victory.
Let me give you the pros and cons really quick on the route.
Please.
The pros and cons on the route. If you're staying in Oklahoma, the road is really nice, and it's like the straightest road in the country on 412 going out there, nice wide shoulders. But if you're taking the Texas route, the road's a bit narrower and more dangerous, but the speed limit's like 80.
Okay.
So it just increases the difficulty level a little bit, and you get there a little bit faster. So you got to.
I've made some trips to Guyman before, and I always worry about those houses. Like, where's the closest Walmart and the closest ambulance? How are you going to get there? I mean, it's an amazing story. I always think about that when I drive by those houses on my way to Guyman.
Yeah, but those buses have governors on them anyway, so you may as well stay on the straight road.
If we had Lane Jones on, it would depend on the food pick where you're going to stop for food. So
Wags.
Hunter Shepard, let's go to you.
All right, so as Mark said, Texoma has played the tougher strength of schedule, and that's kind of what I've leaned towards on this pick. And I am also picking the Red Devils to get the win. Like I said, tougher
There we
strength
go,
of
Hunter.
schedule.
Give me a little bump right there. I like it.
Yeah, will probably prevail here.
Skordle.tv, Texoma Red Devils.tv for that matchup. We're halfway through the Skordle Pick'em games. Let's talk some 8-man football for our next two. Let's start in Class C as Coach Severn's Timberlake Tigers are undefeated 6-0 on the year. The Winoka Railroaders 2-4 on the season, looking for a big upset to help its playoff push in C1. Tom, our 8-man expert, let's go to you.
Yeah, the Tigers have been cruising so far. They're 6-0. They haven't given up a point in October yet, but give Buffalo credit. A couple of weeks ago, made them play the full 48. Lost the ball game 38-0. Winoka's 2-4 record's a bit deceiving. They've got losses to really good teams: Covington, Douglas, O'Keene, Pond Creek, Hunter, and then last week to Tyrone. The Railers were in the middle of a 3-week stretch. They're going to play the 3 best teams in the district. Last week, Tyrone. This week, Timberlake. Next week, Balco Forgan. Bottom line, the Railers have played a brutal schedule, and that doesn't change this week, and Timberlake should roll in this one.
Mark.
I will not disagree with the 8-man expert here. A great game between Tipton and Ryan last week that Tipton won by a couple of touchdowns. I think that's something we could see a rematch later in the playoffs, but those are the 3 teams in Class C that I think have the best chance to win. See if somebody can come knock off Tipton, who's kind of owned this. Ryan has been really good. Timberlake is really good. So I think Winoka is also pretty good, but they face a difficult schedule. When I'm trying to do rankings, they even though they've lost quite a few games this year, they deserve to stay in there. So Winoka will make the playoffs, and they'll be a threat when they get in there, but they're not going to win this week, in my opinion. So I like Timberlake.
Chris.
Tom, is Class C just an opening audition for the Tigers versus Tigers in the state championship game this year?
It sure could be. It sure could be. That's exactly right.
No discount Ryan, the Cowboys.
Well,
I don't agree with that either.
Yeah. Well, Timberlake, I think their senior class, I think my notes have them 42-4, including a championship their freshman year. Can't go against the Railroaders. Their 2 victories are against 2 teams that have not won a game, I believe, this entire season. So I will go with Timberlake. They doubled them up last year, and I think they'll have a pretty easy go with it again here on Thursday night.
Hunter.
Well, and as you guys said, Class C has been dominated by Tipton. I think the 3 teams that are the favorites are them, Ryan, and Timberlake. But it's hard to go against Coach Severn's group in this game, and I'm taking Timberlake. That's the tweet.
And this game is also at Brian Severin Field, and I've got to go back and do my homework in this one. What is Timberlake's record at Brian Severin Field since they named it after him a few years ago? I don't know if they've lost there yet, so I'll check that out.
Timberlake Tigers.tv, Squirrel.tv for that matchup.
In our business and at our firm, it's all about preparation, preparation, preparation. We are advocates for our client. We speak for them. So as a part of that advocacy, it involves hiring the best experts. It's doing the legal research. It's doing the medical research. That is advocacy behind the scenes. It's not just the bells and whistles in front of the jury.
But let's talk about another 8-man game, District B1. 2 5-1 teams squaring off on Thursday in Pond Creek. The Garber Wolverines have been impressive this year with its lone loss at Cub Dug a couple of weeks ago on a game that we covered here on the show. Pond Creek Hunter was undefeated until last week, and they faced a buzzsaw in Laverne. Tom, we'll start with you again.
Well, I wanted to see how Garber was going to bounce back from their loss 3 weeks ago at Covington Douglas. They had a bye week, then they buried Pioneer last week in their district opener 62-16. The week off gave the Wolverines a chance to adjust to life without Carson Bishop. He's out for the season after a knee injury. We saw that in the Covington game. In his career, he had accumulated almost 4,500 total yards and scored 66 touchdowns. That's a lot to lose. Now, the next man up in the backfield is Alex Chester, and we saw him play pretty well after Carson got hurt against Covington. And then last week in the Pioneer game, 82 yards rushing on 11 carries and 3 touchdowns. So, somebody's stepping in there, and of course, Garber's pretty darn talented anyway. But Tanner Bowman, head coach at Pond Creek Hunter, he's beginning to wake up the echoes of the David Kerr era at Pond Creek Hunter. His Panthers lost to Laverne last week after rattling off 5 big wins to start the season. And after talking to him last week, he did the broadcast with me, the Chisholm Mount St. Mary game. And I know he feels like the program is on the right track. I think so as well. But But even without Carson Bishop, Garber still has a lot of experience and a lot of weapons. And after this week, I think that Pond Creek Hunter will win their next two, which is going to set up a huge Week 10 game with number 2 ranked Turpin out in the Panhandle. But this week, I've got to go with the Wolverines.
By the way, this game starts at 1 p.m. on Thursday, so it's a Thursday matinee game in Pond Creek. Marcus, go to you. Garber at Pond Creek.
You got to like getting out of school early on a Thursday. I mean, I totally sanction that. That's awesome. Coach Kerr does a really good job on the analysis of the game, so I'll give him a shout out too. This, I think, is the toughest district in the state, maybe within any class, because you've got Garber, Laverne, and Turpin, all state title contenders this year. And then I think Pond Creek is a little bit after that. But I think that this B1 is going to sweep B2 in the playoffs. I think they're that good. But I think Garber gets the win here over Pond Creek. Pretty significant rival. How many miles separate these two teams, Tom?
As the crow flies, probably 20. If you drive it, it's 14 plus 16, so probably 30 if you drive, because they got to go east and down south. But if you're flying, it's not quite that far, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I thought it might be a little closer than that. I don't think anybody will be flying into the game unless it's on a crop duster. So
they have a bunch of those. They have a bunch of those in Pond Creek.
That's a legit possibility. Yeah, the Dieterdings will get you from Garber to Pond Creek.
Exactly right.
Chris, let's go to you.
Yeah, I have B1 as best district for sure in Class B on my notes here. There was a time I remember Garber couldn't lose a football game or a basketball game. I don't know how long that's been, but they had
2009, 2010, they won them both. So yeah,
there you go. Man, he is the guru. Wow, that's good. That's a good call. But I think Garber, Pond Creek, the winner of this game can have a 8-win season in this one here. But I will go with the Wolverines as well. Garber to get their 6th victory of the year.
Hunter.
As you guys said, this is the toughest district in B1. I could very well see this district sweeping in the first round of the playoffs. And Garber's got the experience. I think Wolverines roll on to a victory.
Entire panel taking Garber. Food pick, if you're going to Pond Creek, stop in at Greasy Steve's.
It ain't easy being greasy.
Ain't easy being greasy.
I've not heard of Greasy Steve's.
Oh yeah, got to hit Greasy Steve's.
I heard of the peppermint patch, but not Greasy
right
Steve's.
Right across the street, Greasy Steve's is Steve Stinson. I don't know if he's still the mayor of Pond Creek or not, but he was, and got a nice little establishment right there across from Dieterdings, as a matter of fact, on the curve on the way into town. Good chicken fried steaks, good burgers, got a special every day. Steve, give me some money.
I'm glad to see that Andy has recovered from near death in week 1 to looking pleasantly plump here in week 7 and is back to normal. So
fried chicken. Mark, you got to go to Greasy Steve's. Chicken fried chicken, Mel's dessert. It's as good as it gets in Northwest Oklahoma. Pick'em game number 7, which is our first Skordle game of the week. District 2A1 matchup. The Marlow Outlaws 5-1 after a 31-0 shutout of Crossing Christian last week that we discussed on the show. The Marlow defense has given up a total of 14 points combined in its last 5 games. Obviously facing a very tough test as the Outlaws travel to Washington to take on the number 1 Warriors. Washington is 6-0 and has dominated opponents all year, other than that great overtime win over Sulphur. Mark Rogers, kick us off. Marlow at Washington.
All right, this came across my Twitter feed earlier today. The Marlow Outlaws had not shut out 3 opponents in a row since the 80s. So these are 2 teams that have an armada of players. If we had a tournament of champions in football like we do in basketball, Washington would clearly be invited into that. These 2 teams last met in the state championship game in 2021. Marlow won at 17-13. It'll be a good game. It'll be a test for Washington, but I think the Warriors will go ahead and win this one.
Tom.
Yeah, it was 37 games ago. That's when the last time Washington lost a football game to Marlow in that state championship game back in 21. Haven't lost since. And the Outlaws and Warriors haven't played since that gold ball game. Now they're in the same district, and it's about time we see these 2 on the same field again. So Marlow and Washington are head and shoulders above anybody else in 2A1 District 2. So it's not too out of line to say this is for the district title in week 7. I think I picked against Washington a couple of times over the last 36 games, but I'm not going to tonight. You just don't walk into Washington and leave with a win, and I don't think Marlowe will do it either.
Chris.
Yeah, Washington's got that win streak, and I think they've won 50 of the last 51. But I was like, well, I got to impress Tom, and I was trying to think. I didn't know we had the Washington Guru with us tonight either. So I was kind of go back to when the last time Washington lost a home football game, and I think it was Marlowe who got him at home. You have to fact check me on that. I think it was 2018. Marlowe won that game 14-3. So I thought I'd try to figure out the last time Washington even lost on their home field. We know about the win streak, but yeah, I really like the Hudson Howard. Obviously, Noah Roberts gets all the publicity, and I really think Noah will really shine in that Ohio State offense at that tight end spot. Looking forward to that. I got an M&M out, and I flipped it, and it came up W. And especially with Hunter on tonight, I have to go with the Washington Warriors. But Marlowe has Washington's number. If anybody has a good chance at Washington in the regular season, it's definitely going to be Marlowe. But I'll take Brad Beeler over Matt Weber in a great coaching matchup.
Washington Guru, Hunter Shepard.
All right, so as we were talking about, Marlowe was the last team to beat Washington on home field. There's going to be a lot riding on this. I think Reed Field's going to be packed for sure. Probably going to be the biggest competition Washington faces since that double overtime game against Sulphur. And a little fun fact for you, Creed Barrett in that game, a freshman, threw for 427. So that's kind of tell you what he's capable of. Like I said, Marlowe has yet to give up a point in district play. And I was talking to another coach. He thinks this could be a state championship preview, which, it's like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get it in the state championship. This could be similar to the Jones and the Millwood series, where you never know what's going to happen. But be that as it may, as the win streak rides on, so do the Warriors. And I say, Warriors Nation, let's ride.
Oh, so you're picking Marlowe.
No, I'm picking Washington.
Hunter with the headgear. I love it.
First of the year. That's impressive.
Hey, that
Had
game.
to pull a leak course, so.
Well done, Hunter. That game broadcasted on WashingtonWarriors.tv, and the WashingtonWarriors.tv crew will be broadcasting. TJ, Kyle, Stewart, Xander, and Emma, all of those people do a fantastic job bringing you the Washington Warriors every week. So love having them on as our first Skordle game of the week. Let's move on to game number 8 for the Skordle Network. Second Skordle game of the week. The Hooker Bulldogs had a huge win at Cashion in the Skordle game of the week last week, defeating the Wildcats 54-14. With that win, we are now set up for the game of the year in Class A, with Hooker hosting the undefeated Fairview Yellow Jackets, who have a win streak of their own, just like Washington that we talked about. This is a rematch from last year's state championship game, and the winner of this matchup obviously very likely to win District A1. Tom, you are going out there to Hooker to broadcast this game with Adam Dieselhorst. Give us a preview.
Well, this game being on a Thursday night means I'm right in the middle of my homework for this game, so I've got a bunch of notes. You know, it takes a lot to get us out to the Panhandle on the game of the week, and this is a lot. A rematch of last year's state championship game. These three teams have been district mates every year since they first played back in 2010. Fairview's won 11 of those 15 games, and the last 4 in a row since these seniors have been on the roster. Now, Fairview, of course, the 36-game winning streak after losing to Tonkawa in the playoffs in 2021. Over that same stretch, Hooker's gone 26-8, 3 losses to Fairview, and then 3 losses to Texas powerhouse Sunray. We'll talk about Fairview quarterback Jax Bernard, went over 10,000 yards passing last week. He's number 7 right now, and he's 47-1 in his career. He's 73 yards away from getting past Jeremy Littell for 5th on the list. Jeremy from Stillwater, of course. And as good as he is, though, he's protected by a great offensive line, has lots of weapons around him. His defense has given up some points, but when you average almost 50 points a game, you can get away with that, too. Hooker has won 5 straight since a 2-point season opening loss to Sunray, Texas. Last week at Cashion, Cleet Martins, 9 of 13, 265 yards and 3 touchdowns. Justin Palacios, 178 yards rushing on just 10 carries. He had 3 touchdowns in the ball game as well. Now, Palacios has been dominant in his short career, just shy of 2,500 rushing yards midway through his sophomore season. But against Fairview last year, he had 149 yards on 36 carries over 2 games. He was held to just over 4 yards a carry, which is a far cry from his 10 yards per carry average against everybody else. So a key to this game is going to be Palacios getting closer to 10 yards per carry than 4. And the wind is supposed to be a factor. It's going to blow 20 to 30 miles an hour from the south. And so the passing games for both teams might be a little interesting. No pick from me on this game, but I'm not going 3.5 hours for a snoozer. So this is going to be a good one.
Mark?
All right. I'll just get this out of the way. I'm not going to pick against Fairview because I don't want to do anything that would jeopardize me receiving Mark Rogers bars sometimes during the playoff. But I think that if this is going to be a huge test for Fairview, I think they did a great thing by scheduling a game in Kingston on the road earlier this year. So they kind of simulated a long trip on the bus, because the long bus trips can be problematic for teams. I've seen 2 of the last 3 of these games, and they've been dominated by Fairview. I don't think Fairview is as good on defense as they have been the last couple of years. That's no disrespect to this defense, because the last 2 years they've been excellent, and they're really aggressive and really fast in the secondary. There is a ton to play for in this game from the Hooker side of it. I think quarterback, clearly, Jax is a special player over the 10,000-yard mark, as Tom mentioned last week. And I don't think he's going to let his team lose, but I think this one is going to the very end. I think it'll be close. It wouldn't shock me if Hooker won this game, but I think it'll be fantastic. I'm going with
Mark. Mark, really quick, you made a good point there. I mean, winning this district gets you, those home games. And when you're Hooker, that's huge, because you're not going on what's going to be a long road trip anywhere you go. You get to make those teams go all the way to the Panhandle. I think that's huge.
Chris, let's go to you. Fairview at Hooker.
Yeah, I got Fairview 250 miles away, 4 hours on the drive there. I think this will be the 3rd meeting in 13 months, and I think a lot of Class A fans are thinking maybe 4 times in 15 months, come a little bit later on in the year. You guys, Tom and Mark, covered it well. I think if I want to come back on this show ever again, I don't think I better pick against Fairview, but Fairview, I have winning this one, and Bernard kid, it's just impressive watching him in person last year in Edmond and in some of the games on Skordle, and just a remarkable career, and it's fun to watch him. So I think he'll have a great game. The thing I'll be interested in, Tom, is that Hooker crowd. I mean, Fairview's been a thorn in their side. I think as a high school kid, you kind of go out there and have fun, eat popcorn, but I think they're going to be paying attention to 3rd down and 10 situations. And I think really everybody in Hooker is going to be focused on that game. I think that'll be a tremendous atmosphere. And you definitely got one of the best ones. Well, you got the best one in the state.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Hunter Shepard.
All right. So, I think it's safe to say Fairview and Hooker is pretty much a rivalry at this point, considering they'll play each other in literally everything. Rematch of the state championship last year. And I say Fairview's been the favorite in the class all year. A1 has got a lot of parity. Fairview, Pawnee, Hooker, Cola, Rejoice Christian. You got a lot of good teams in there. As for this game, I am not betting against the Yellow Jackets. I'm taking them in this game, and let's just say Jax Bernard is that guy.
Hey, one thing I'll throw in there really quick. You're talking about food picks, and I've got to throw this out there. Last week we talked about Al's Super Burger out in Hooker about back in the day, 40 years ago, when I was playing American Legion baseball, and he had the ultimate marketing plan by giving the player of the game for the home team and the visiting team a free meal, because the whole visiting team would go to his place. Found out he passed away in 1998. So a moment of silence for Al's Super Burger 26 years later. But just doing my homework. That's part of the homework I've been doing for this ball game, is to find out what happened to Al at Al's Super Burger. So
well done, Tom. Appreciate that update. And hey, shout out to Shane Metcalf.
That's a long time coming, by the way, Tom.
Exactly right. Shout out Shane Metcalf. We had him on as a guest picker last week. He is the main guy there with the Hooker Bulldog Network, and they're going to be giving Tom and Adam a lot of hospitality as they travel to Hooker on Thursday night. Fairview people, special message to you. I'm a member of the What's Up Fairview Facebook page, and every single week I see people posting on there, what is the score of the Fairview game? Fairview people, you have a Fairview alumnus who created this app called Skordle that has the score of every high school football game in the state of Oklahoma on it. So get on your smartphone, download the Skordle app, and you can see the score updated live every few minutes. You can also watch the game on the app, as Fairview is a Skordle network school. So, hey, Fairview people, get your technology going, download the Skordle app, Skordle.tv.
Adam, I've been doing Guthrie football since 1999. I'm still getting the same questions to this day. So it's some years you just let it go. Some years you have to remind them, but I know exactly what that message is all about.
Quick trivia question. Go ahead, Tom.
And this week with the game of the week, you've got a Fairview alumnus in the color commentary. So
that's exactly right. Quick trivia question before we move on to the non-school network games. Tom mentioned the 10,000-yard passing barrier that Jax Bernard passed this last week. There are 7 players on that list who have thrown for 10,000 yards in the state of Oklahoma. One school has 2 players on that list.
I just looked at the darn list.
Can you name the school? Anybody tell me the school?
My first guess would be Stillwater, Plattell, and Holiday.
Stillwater has 1 on the list.
Okay.
Locust Grove.
Mason Fine is on that list at Locust Grove.
He is number 1 on the list.
Yeah. What the second one from Locust Grove, though?
Mason Fine.
Mason Fine is number 1, and then a Keats Calhoun from Victory Christian is number 2. Atoka player number 3. And then this school has number 4 and number 5. They're both within the last 8 years. Class A school, Skordle Network.
Is it the Harmon brothers from Cashin?
Yeah.
The Harmon brothers from Cashin. Shepard nailed
Way
it.
to go.
Yeah, that was just a shot in the dark, too.
Yeah, well, it landed.
I feel really, really stupid because that's the first thing I noticed when I saw the list. I go, oh, 2 Cashin guys on there, they're brothers. And one of them played at Pittsburgh State, and the other one went to Emporia, I think.
Right. Talked with Coach Shackelford about that this week. It was fun going over that list.
Last thing before we wrap up on this one, if you take Chris's equipment and you take Metcalf's equipment at Hooker, you got the equivalent of 4 Best Buys. I don't know. These guys have spent a lot of time in there. So I don't know who has the more impressive equipment. I'll probably go with Chris, but it could be a toss-up. I've seen Chris do the work of an entire ESPN truck on his own. So, I mean, I got to side with my guy.
It is very impressive setup for sure. All right, let's discuss the 4 non-Skordle network games in the state of Oklahoma this week. These games will not be on Skordle.tv, Fairview people, but yeah, hopefully these will be great matchups that you can watch on other broadcasts. Let's start with Deer Creek at Jinx. Mark, Deer Creek at Jinx.
Ooh, tough game. I think that, there's Jinx surprised me a little bit by losing to Union in a low-scoring game. Didn't surprise me that they lost to Bixby and Owasso. So it's hard to compare when it comes to teams on this side of the state against those teams. I do think Deer Creek is the best team in the West. So I will, and Jinx has been vulnerable to a couple of sides down here. So I'm going to say that that Deer Creek gets the win in this game. It'll be close, but I'll go with the Antlers over the Trojans.
Tom.
We've talked about Deer Creek so much on the show because of Jake and how good they've looked. And they're 6-0 for the first time in over 20 years. But they've got a backloaded schedule, starting with Jinx this week, followed by Norman, Bixby, and Mustang. Jinx is 3-3, but those last 3 are combined 14-4. And, of course, we know how good Bixby is. Deer Creek averaging 43 points a game with a scoring margin of 27 points per contest. Jinx 3 losses are to the number 1, number 2, and 4th-ranked teams in the state. Deer Creek's ranked 3rd in Mark's poll. This district is really competitive. This is a huge game for playoff positioning. But I really think Jinx is a hard place to go into and win. And Deer Creek has never played the Trojans before. They've never been there. That place is a zoo. The crowd's right on top of you. I think Jinx is going to get this one. I'll go Oppo for Mark.
Chris.
I also have Deer Creek number 3 this week with Jinx number 5 in my top 10 rankings. We always hear about the East Side against the West Side in Class 6A football. Deer Creek gets their first opportunity to be in that mix with Jinx this week, Bixby in a few weeks. Deer Creek's had no issues with the West Side schools. I totally agree with Mark. I think they, by far, not by far, but a good team. Grady Adamson, the Georgia Tech commit, almost 1,300 passing yards, 18 touchdowns. Jinx looking for a winning record, second time. They started off 1-0, but mentioned the points earlier. Jinx scored 24 against the Wausau, 3 against Union, and 7 against Bixby. So that's 34 points. You take those 3 teams out, and when Jinx plays the West Side schools, Jinx is averaging 41 points per game. Owen Jones on Tuesday night commits to the University of Central Oklahoma, so the Broncos get a good one there. Caden Jones, 208 rushing yards last week in the victory over Mustang. And the winner of this game more than likely could get a first-round bye. I will go with the Jinx Trojans. They were my preseason state championship pick, and they had the Dillard brothers from Lincoln Christian come over. They got an offensive lineman from Hell. I think they're starting to come together after their lumps, and so I'm trying to stand behind my Jinx pick to win it all, but I will go with Jinx Trojans to give Deer Creek their first loss of the year. But great job by Coach Wade Stanley getting that Deer Creek team going first year in 6A1.
Deer Creek at Jinx. Hunter.
All right. So as you guys said, this is a really tough one to pick because, Deer Creek's never played Jinx before. Jinx is a tough place to win at on the road. Deer Creek 6-0. Jinx is playing a gauntlet schedule. And I will say this on that 9-6, 9-7 game against Union. We know how big a rivalry that is. Backyard Bowl, our biggest rivalry in the state. I am going to pick Jinx to play spoiler here because, like I said, 3-3, but that schedule is no pushover.
Brahms Banana Fudge Sundae gives a whole new meaning to decadent taste. 2 creamy scoops of premium vanilla ice cream overflowing with delicious hot fudge and fresh slices of banana to create the perfect balance between the fruity banana flavor and rich hot fudge. Treat yourself to a banana fudge sundae at Brahms, where every spoonful is pure bliss.
All right, let's go to non-school network game number 2, Stillwater at Choctaw. Mark.
The only blemish on the Stillwater record is Carl Albert, who is rolling this year, gave up the first points of the season last week in garbage time against Noble. I think the difference in this game is going to be on the defensive side of the ball for Stillwater. Very, very difficult defense to try to score against. Guys moving all over the place on that side of the ball. So I think Stillwater will go on the road and defeat Choctaw, who we could absolutely see this rematch in the playoffs again. I think that the teams in Class 5A or 6A Division II to beat Muskogee, defending champs, and Stillwater and Choctaw.
Mark, could OU score on Carl Albert?
I don't know. Those guys that are at Carl Albert right now might be playing in Norman if they were there a year early. I would set the team total for OU if they're playing at Jim Harris Field at 20.5.
The Palace on Post Road. Yeah, I would take Speedwalk. I would take the Carl Albert kicker for a field goal, who, by the way, he had a 51-yard field goal last week in the victory over Noble. So
yeah, we don't want to 2-box OU with Carl Albert.
Stillwater at Choctaw. Tom, let's go to you.
This series has been electric the last 3 meetings. Games decided by 3, 4, and 5 points. Stillwater's won the last 2 years. Choctaw blasted Southmore last week, breaking the 50-point mark and racking up almost 500 yards of offense. Stillwater has played glorified scrimmages, putting up 60-plus against U.S. Grant and Northwest Class in the last 2 weeks. I just think that Choctaw might be a little more battle-tested here just because they did play somebody the last couple of weeks where Stillwater was kind of going through the motions. And I think it's going to be home field advantage. I'll go with Choctaw, but it's going to be a good ball game.
Chris.
Yeah, I was at that playoff game last year. Juju Smith tackled at the 1-yard line. It was an amazing finish and a tremendous game over at Edmond North High School. This game's important. The winner of this game potentially stays away from Muskogee until the state championship game. So that would be a big win for whoever wins this game. Stillwater's really control this series in the playoffs and regular season. Cash Williams over at Choctaw, tremendous football player, even better baseball player. He's committed to play at University of Tennessee. Juju Smith, a wide receiver, Mayor Morgan, they really got it going offensively. Stillwater's quarterback, Schubert, does a great job. And as Mark said, I'm coming up with all these offensive numbers, but like Mark said, this can come down to the defense in this one, and I will go with the visiting Stillwater Pioneers to control this series between these two programs.
Hunter.
All right, so I mean, this is a pretty evenly matchup between these two teams. As you guys said, a win's important because that means you stay away from Muskogee until the championship, which I do think Muskogee is still the team to beat, as they're still loaded on offense. 6A2 runs through these three, and hard to bet against that Pioneer defense. So I gotta take Stillwater in this one.
I think Stillwater's won 8 of the last 9, so I don't know if that plays a factor or not, but no, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, interesting.
We got to. There are a lot of smart people that are in charge of running high school sports. We got to do something to get some of the Oklahoma City public schools out of this class. I mean, I know that it's difficult based on enrollment, but it's not a fair fight, and it is not, to me, good for teams like Stillwater and Choctaw that have programs that are rolling to have to play games like that where their starters don't get a chance to play maybe for 2 and 3 weeks. So there has to be a way to figure out based on performance that, and I love the coaches that are coaching at the Oklahoma City public schools, but it's just not fair for those kids not to have a chance to win and compete every week. They need to play in a more suitable class.
That's exactly.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly.
Well,
yeah.
They used to do that too. I mean, until a couple of years ago, they went back into district play, but there for a while, Grant and Northwest Classen were doing what Guyman's doing now, just kind of playing an independent schedule.
Yeah, they can do that. I'm talking more about if the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association, there needs to be some kind of a special exemption there to put them in a class where they can compete and play games every week against teams that are competitive, because we don't want to see a game that's 60-0 every week. I mean, we want to see teams that's good competition and that benefits everybody involved. And so there's got to be a way to figure that out. But to put U.S. Grant, Northwest, and those schools in this class is not fair. Not fair.
And you're exactly right. It's going to take someone a lot smarter than me, Mark. But the suggestion, because we looking for the best level playing field, where maybe you take the 2 best teams. I don't know what the formula would be, but maybe the 2 best teams that finish in a class move up, and the 2 worst teams move down. Maybe Southeast High School ends up in Class 3A over a span of years, and maybe 35, 40 kids start coming out for Southeast football. We always talk about Jinx and Carl Albert and Stillwater, Choctaw, Muskogee, all these teams. But there's the Western Heights and the Southeast and all these U.S. Grants, Capitol Hills that maybe they work their way down till they find that comfort zone. Meanwhile, Carl Albert can bump up 6A2. Carl Albert took it to Muskogee a couple of years ago. They can compete in 6A2. This year they beat Stillwater. They can play in 6A2 until they, I just think that would be, as far as a level playing field. What that formula looks like, I don't know, but that's one way. That's my mild suggestion from.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why they have split some of the smaller classes into 2 divisions, is to encourage enrollment, participation from teams. And I think that's right. That's what everybody wants. You want to have more people out participating and getting a chance to be a part of athletics. And it will definitely help. I mean, I just can't imagine what it's like to go out for football when you're up against what they are there. And some same schools and same issues with some of the Tulsa public schools too, with Hale and Webster and Memorial. So maybe we can find something that can work for those schools.
And I will say this, I do know that there is a league in softball where you got 4 OKC public schools, 4 Tulsa schools. I can't remember what it's called, but they play each other in a schedule, and
they froze Hunter.
Wow.
That's good.
The powers didn't want any part of that, but we kind of already see a little bit with private schools moving up because of success. So
yes.
it has a history in the past of doing that.
Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm not really familiar with it, but didn't John Marshall a few years ago, when didn't they move down a couple of classes because of they split up or something like that, and they won the state championship, got a good coach in there and won a state championship a couple years later? Didn't that happen with them?
Yeah, Rashawn Woods.
Yeah, Rashawn Woods won. It was, they opened a new high school, and it was just really was smaller enrollment. I mean, that's what it was. So some of the enrollment fluctuates there, but you have to look past, I think, enrollment.
Perfect example, Tom. John Marshall down in 3A. Now they're in 5A trying to find a win.
Yeah. Yeah.
with
That's
18 kids.
Wow. Wow.
fascinating discussion, guys. Really appreciate that. Let's talk about two teams. I'm not sure have been on the show so far this year. Adam can fact check me on that, but Colcord at Adair. Mark.
All right. Colcord has not beaten Adair since 2010. They haven't played really every year. Colcord has a great win in knocking off Sequoia Claremore. They beat them 13-12 in week 2. This is another class that's loaded. You really never just gone by Colcord. You have to go off of the highway. Been there a couple of times. There's a convenience store in the high school and Hills and Arkansas, and that's really about it. So you have to want to go there. I'm going to go with the Hornets. They've got a really good coach in the second year there. Adair's had a good season. Salina, they're doing a really good job there in that district with Scott Harmon taking over as the head coach. And I know he's really embraced being at that school. But watch out for Colcord. They called their game against Fairview a couple of years ago in the state semifinals at Hera. And I like the Hornets to win this one.
Tom.
Adair's got a junior quarterback. His name is Cooper McCord. He can throw it with accuracy, completing about 70% of his passes, leads the team in rushing 112 yards a game, and he has 14 rushing touchdowns. He's good. Adair has already beaten the two other really good teams in this district in Salina and Kansas. There is actually a Salina, Kansas, too. That's interesting. But Colcord is going to play Salina and Kansas to end the season. Everything is telling me to take Adair, so I'm going to take Adair in this one.
Chris.
Well, there's going to be a good team coming out of this district that's going to go on the road, whether it be Colcord, Adair, or Kansas in the first round, and they're going to go up against Henrietta, maybe Vian, probably Henrietta. So that would be a marquee first round matchup there. Coach Ryan Keenan's done a great job with Colcord. I will tell you this: every time I pick the Hornets, it's the opposite, and I picked the Colcord a lot in the past. So I might have some good news for Hornet fans out here in just a second. But the victory over 3A Sequoia Claremore. Impressive there, but I will go with the Warriors to stay undefeated, take down Colcord, which that means congratulations, Hornets.
Hunter, Colcord at Adair.
All right. So as you guys said, this is a loaded district, lower division of 2A's, pretty stacked overall. I mean, Colcord, Adair, Davis, Vian, Alva. You got a lot of different teams that could make a run at it. I am picking the Warriors in this one to stay undefeated, but I could see it being a really close game because, like I said, both teams are good and Colcord's got the good strength of resume, but I like the Warriors to pull it out.
You guys are leaving me on an island a couple times tonight, man. I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Let's talk about our last pick'em game of the show tonight, Norman at Moore. Mark.
These teams did not play in 2020 due to COVID, but if you throw that out, it's the longest unbroken rivalry in 6A, I believe. So they started playing in 1967. This will be the 59th time they've played. In the last 24 meetings, it's 12-12. Moore's won the last 3. I'm taking all Tom's material right here, so I appreciate you covering me first. I think this is a toss-up. These teams are both pretty good. They both have really good quarterbacks. I think Moore has, in the last couple of seasons, they've done a nice job of building this program. And so I think it's going to be Moore and a tight.
Tom.
Yeah, one more number. Moore has won 7 of 8 in the series as well. But they've also been beaten up by Bixby and Deer Creek the last couple of weeks. Norman rolled over Enid by 40-plus points last week after a loss a couple of weeks ago to Jinx. I just like where this game falls in Norman's schedule. A little bit easier game last week than Moore's had the past couple. So I'm going to go with Norman in this one.
Chris.
I still don't know who I'm picking right now. Mark, you both split your votes, so now I'm going to have to go on an island by myself. But 59th meeting, I got it on my notes as well. 59th meeting between these two programs. Big game because I think it could decide who plays at home in the first round of the playoffs and who goes on the road in the first round of the playoffs. 12 out of 16 teams in 6A make the playoffs, but Norman has the toughest schedule left with Deer Creek, Mustang, and Bixby. Need a win, but I will go with I'm going to go with the home team. I'll go with the Moore Lions.
Hey, I was going through trying to do some playoff projections this week, man. I mean, holy cow, sorting out the metro teams in Oklahoma City and how they're going to finish in these districts, an impossibility. I mean, I think that it's incredibly even. And we'll have a lot of great games going forward. And there's been a lot of close ones to date. So I think this is going to be kind of the standard for what we'll see going forward as these teams try to kind of filter in behind the Owassos, Bixby's, Jinx, Unions of this group.
Yeah, I looked at the 4A and 5A bracket, and I started with the 6A, and I stopped. It was like there's too many moving pieces right now to even decide to look at that.
I forgot. I totally forgot that 6 of the 8 teams make the playoffs in those 6A classes. Hey, the Enid Plainsmen still got a shot. Jeez,
still there. Much improved, Enid.
Yeah.
Our last pick of the night, Norman at Moore, Hunter.
All right, as you guys said, 6A1 on the west side is just incredibly hard to pick apart. Both these teams are having their best seasons in a couple of years. I think it's going to be a close one, and it's going to probably come down to quarterback play. And like I said, this is going to have huge playoff implications, but I will take the Lions in this one.
Very good. Well, hey, we've had some great guest pickers on so far this year. Chris, Hunter, you guys are right at the top. Really appreciate you joining the show. For those who don't know, Hunter got the call about an hour ago that we needed him to sub for Jacob Dieselhorst and fill in. So incredible job, Hunter, preparing and giving us some great commentary within the hour that you had to work to get this get prepared. So appreciate it.
And I don't know if Jake has ever heard of Wally Pipp, but it's been a good run for him, and we're glad to have him on the show all these years. We still appreciate the sponsorship dollars, but it's been nice knowing you, Jake.
Just call him Lou Gehrig. Call Hunter Lou Gehrig from here.
Well, Hunter even brought props.
He did. That's why we won't miss Jake.
Now, Hunter, let's hear your schedule real quick. They're doing softball and football this week.
Oh, yes. I know, like, I've got probably 3 local teams playing within 2 hours Thursday because I'm going to have to split time with Lindsay and Chandler and Purcell and Verdigris. Then Washington and Adair are at noon. Those first 2 games are at 10 a.m. on Field 3. And I got over to the big field at noon. Then I got Washington Marlowe that night. And then the next day, I could possibly have 2 local teams playing at the same time. Because I believe if Washington wins, they'll play at 1:30. And then if Purcell and Blanchard both win their games, they play on 1:30 on Field 3. And then I got to go do Purcell North Rock Creek football that night. But then I'm at the Hall of Fame all 4 games on Saturday.
Hey, if somebody wants to buy your pictures or support you, how do they do that?
Well, I mean, you look up Hunter Shepherd Photography on Facebook. I post the links to all my galleries on there, post a couple preview photos on there. I think last weekend was one of my busiest weeks. It's like I didn't have a local team at Class 2A through B, but I still went up there anyway. And of course, I was there for all 3 games on Saturday.
Hardest working man in sports.
Go to Sapulpa and cover some volleyball while in your free time.
Yeah, I actually did a volleyball game at Bethany a few weeks ago, and let's just say I like volleyball, but it is a hard sport to photograph. You gotta get the angle just right.
I've seen your camera; you can get it.
Bonus picks more in Class 6A girls volleyball and Mount St. Mary in Class 5A girls volleyball. I guess there is no
hard to pick against those 2 right now.
Thank you, Hunter. Thank you.
Well, and thank you all for joining us on the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst. Chris and Hunter, thank you again for joining us as our guest pickers tonight. We will be back next week with 8 more